Imagine a rainy street corner in a forgotten part of Chicago, where a struggling single dad kneels in the mud to fix a stranger's broken cart, not knowing she's the key to a past he thought he'd lost forever. What if she's not just a beggar, but a secret billionaire hiding in plain sight? And what if their chance reunion sparks something bigger, a love rekindled, a dream reborn, a legacy that could heal a whole community? This is the cart that carried us, a story of kindness that defies the odds, of two souls finding each other through the wreckage of time, and of the miracles that happen when you least expect them. Stick around to uncover how a simple act of compassion turns into a journey you won't forget. If you're loving these tales of heart and hope, consider subscribing. It's the quiet way to join our little community of dreamers and storytellers. Now let's step into the rain and begin. A struggling single dad helped a beggar fix her cart, then learned she was his childhood love and a secret billionaire. The rain came down in sheets that late October afternoon, a cold, relentless drizzle that seemed to seep into Ethan Harper's bones as he trudged home from the mall. At 42, he felt older than his years, shoulders hunched under the weight of a grey hoodie soaked through, hands shoved deep into his pockets. The streets of suburban Chicago glistened under the dim streetlights, reflecting a world that felt as worn out as he did. He'd just finished a 10-hour shift as a janitor, mopping floors and emptying trash cans, a far cry from the dreams he'd once held close. Dreams of a kitchen filled with the scent of rosemary and sizzling pans, of a life where he could feed people's souls, not just clean up after them. Ethan glanced at his watch, 5:47 p.m. He was late again. Lily and Max would be waiting, their babysitter probably tapping her foot by now. His kids were his anchor, the only light in a life that had dimmed since their mother, Sarah, died in a car accident 4 years ago. Lily, 10, with her sharp wit and quiet strength, and Max, 7, with his endless questions and gap-toothed grin. They deserved better than a father who could barely keep the lights on in their cramped apartment. He quickened his pace, the ache in his legs a dull reminder of reality. Half a block from home, he saw her, a figure hunched over a battered shopping cart at the corner of Elm Street. She was a woman, maybe in her late 30s or early 40s, her face obscured by a tattered scarf and a hood pulled low. The cart was piled high with odds and ends. Plastic bags, a frayed blanket, a couple of dented cans. One wheel had come loose, wobbling pitifully as she tried to push it through a puddle. She muttered something under her breath, frustration etched in the slump of her shoulders. Ethan hesitated. He was tired, soaked, and the babysitter would charge extra if he didn't get home soon. But something about her stopped him. Maybe the way she fought with that cart, like it was the last thing holding her together. He'd seen plenty of folks like her in this part of town, invisible to most, but tonight he couldn't look away. With a sigh, he crossed the street. "Hey!" he called, raising his voice over the patter of rain. "Need a hand?" She froze, then turned slowly. Up close, her face was weathered but striking, high cheekbones, a faint scar above her left eyebrow, and eyes that caught the light like polished amber. She studied him for a moment, wary, before nodding. "If you've got the time," she said, her voice low and rough, like she hadn't used it much lately. Ethan knelt by the cart, rain dripping off his nose as he inspected the wheel. It wasn't broken, just loose. A nut had worked its way free. He rummaged in his backpack, pulling out a small wrench he kept for odd jobs. The woman watched in silence as he tightened the bolt, her hands clutching the cart's handle like it was a lifeline. The wheel steadied, and he gave it a test. Push, it rolled smooth. "There you go," he said, standing and wiping his hands on his jeans. "Should hold up now." She didn't smile, but those amber eyes softened. "Thanks," she said simply, then added, almost as an afterthought, "Most people don't." "Stop!" Ethan shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "Yeah, well, I've got a thing for fixing stuff. Used to tinker with my dad's old truck." He paused, then asked, "You okay out here? It's nasty weather." "I've seen worse," she replied, tugging her scarf tighter. "I'm Anna, by the way." "Ethan." He hesitated, then blurted, "Take care, Anna." He turned to go, eager to get home, but her voice stopped him. "You cook, don't you?" she said. He spun back, startled. "What?" "Your hands," she said, nodding at them. "They smell like garlic and thyme. Not the kind of thing a janitor picks up from a mop." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. He'd helped Lily with dinner last night, spaghetti with a quick herb sauce. And the scent must have lingered. Yeah, I cook a little," he admitted. "Nothing fancy." Anna's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. "That's a shame. You've got the hands for it." Before he could respond, she pushed her cart forward, disappearing into the rain as quickly as she'd appeared. Ethan stood there, rain pooling in his sneakers, her words echoing in his head. It had been years since anyone noticed anything about him beyond his mop and broom. He shook it off and hurried home, but Anna lingered in his thoughts like a half-remembered song. When he got to the apartment, Lily was sprawled on the couch with a book, and Max was building a lopsided tower of blocks. The babysitter, Mrs. Carter, gave him a pointed look as she grabbed her coat. 10 minutes late, Ethan. That's $5 extra." "Sorry," he muttered, peeling off his wet hoodie. After she left, he sank onto the couch, exhaustion settling in. But then Max clambered onto his lap, holding something small and worn. A key. Leather-bound notebook, its edges frayed. "Daddy, this fell out of your bag," Max said, thrusting it at him. Ethan frowned. It wasn't his. He opened it, and his breath caught. The pages were filled with handwritten recipes: chicken with rosemary, beef stew with red wine, apple pie with a flaky crust. The handwriting was neat, almost familiar, with little doodles of herbs in the margins. He flipped to the front, and there, in faded ink, was a name: Anna Grayson. His heart thudded. It must have slipped from her cart when he fixed it. But those recipes, they weren't just random. They were his recipes, the ones he'd dreamed up as a kid, scribbling them in the air while someone else listened, laughed, and wrote them down. Someone named Anna. The rain tapped against the window as Ethan sat there, the notebook trembling in his hands. He didn't know how or why, but this stranger in the rain wasn't a stranger at all. And suddenly, the weight of his simple life felt like it might be lifting just a little. Ethan Harper didn't sleep much that night. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a quiet that pressed against the thin walls of his apartment. But his mind churned like a pot left to simmer too long. The notebook lay open on the chipped coffee and table, its pages glowing faintly under the flicker of a dying bulb. Anna Grayson. The name stared back at him, a ghost from a life he'd tucked away in the corners of his heart. He rubbed his eyes, the fatigue of the day warring with a restless curiosity that wouldn't let him rest. Lily had gone to bed after quizzing him about the notebook. "Did you steal it, Daddy?" She'd asked, her brow furrowed like a tiny detective. Max had chimed in. "Is it a treasure map?" Ethan had laughed it off, but their questions lingered. He didn't have answers, not yet. All he had was a tangle of memories and a stranger's, ember eyes that wouldn't leave him alone. He picked up the notebook again, tracing the faded ink with his fingertips. The recipes weren't just familiar, they were his, born from lazy summer days when he was 14, sprawled on the cracked linoleum of his grandmother's kitchen. Back then, he'd had a best friend, Anna Grayson, a girl with a quick laugh, and a knack for turning his wild culinary ideas into something real. They'd sit for hours, him rattling off ingredients while she scribbled them down, her tongue poking out in concentration. "One day, Ethan," she'd say, "we'll open a restaurant. You'll cook, I'll boss you around, and we'll feed the whole world." He could still hear her voice, bright and sure, a lifeline in a childhood shadowed by his parents' fights and the ache of wanting more. Anna had been his spark, the one who believed in him when he barely believed in himself. But then the fire happened, a blaze that swallowed her family's house on the edge of town. She'd vanished after that, 16 and grieving, leaving Him with nothing but a hole where their dreams used to be. He'd spent years wondering where she'd gone, but life had a way of burying questions under bills and broken promises. Now, here she was, or at least her handwriting was. Ethan flipped through the pages again, his chest tightening. Chicken with rosemary, just like he'd made for Sarah on their first date. Beef stew, the one his grandma swore would win him a wife someday. Apple pie, the recipe he'd perfected in his head while Anna sketched apples in the margins. It was impossible, wasn't it? That woman in the rain, Anna, she'd said, couldn't be his Anna, not pushing a broken cart through the cold, not with those weary lines on her face. And yet, those recipes were a bridge to a past he couldn't deny. He closed the notebook and leaned back, staring at the water-stained ceiling. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she'd found it somewhere, a relic of some other kid's dreams, but her words, "You cook, don't you?" And the way she'd looked at his hands, like she knew something he didn't. It gnawed at him. He had to know. The next morning, after dropping Lily and Max at school, Ethan detoured to Elm Street. The corner where he'd met her was empty, just a puddle reflecting a grey sky. He stood there, hands in his pockets, feeling foolish. What was he expecting? That she'd be waiting with answers, like some scene from a movie. He kicked at a pebble, the damp chill seeping through his sneakers, and turned to leave. But then he saw it, a scrap of paper caught under a bench, fluttering in the breeze. He bent down, heart thudding as he unfolded it. The ink was smudged, but the words were clear. "Find me at the corner, Tuesday." It was in the same neat script as the notebook. Tuesday, that was tomorrow. His breath caught, a mix of relief and dread washing over him. She'd left him a trail, whether by accident or design, and now he couldn't unsee it. Back home, Ethan spent the day restless, the notebook a silent companion on the table. He tried to focus, scrubbing the sink, folding laundry, but his mind kept drifting. He saw Anna at 14, her hair tied back with a scrunchie, laughing as she pretended to taste his imaginary stew. He saw her at 16, the last time they'd spoken, her eyes red from crying as she hugged him goodbye outside the charred remains of her house. "I'll be okay, Ethan," she'd whispered. But she wasn't. Neither of them had been. By evening, the kids noticed his distraction. "You're all quiet, Daddy," Lily said, peering at him over her homework. "Is it that book?" "Yeah," Max piped up, bouncing on the couch. "Is it a mystery, like with spies?" Ethan managed a smile. "Something like that, buddy. Just old stuff I'm trying to figure out." Lily tilted her head, too perceptive for her age. "Is it about Mommy?" "No, sweetheart," he said softly, ruffling her hair. "It's about someone else I used to know." That night, he lay awake again, the notebook beside him like a talisman. He wasn't sure what he'd say if he saw her tomorrow. "Hey, remember me? The kid who wanted to feed the world?" Or maybe, "What happened to you, Anna?" What happened to us? He didn't even know if she'd recognize him. 42 and frayed, a far cry from the boy she'd known. But he had to try, for the kid he'd been, for the dreams he'd let slip away, for the chance that something good could still come from the ashes of yesterday. When sleep finally claimed him, it was restless, filled with half-formed images. Anna's laugh, the glow of a kitchen fire, a cart rolling through the rain, and somewhere in the haze a whisper, "Find me." Tomorrow, he would. He didn't know what he'd discover, whether it'd be answers or just more questions. But for the first time in years, Ethan felt a flicker of something he'd almost forgotten. Hope. Tuesday morning broke cold and grey over Chicago, the kind of day that made Ethan Harper want to pull the covers back over his head and let the world turn without him. But the note burned a hole in his pocket. "Find me at the corner Tuesday." And he couldn't ignore it. He shuffled Lily and Max off to school with hurried kisses and half-hearted promises of pizza for dinner, then stood in the doorway of their apartment, the notebook tucked under his arm like a shield. Today wasn't just another slog through his janitor shift. Today he might find Anna, his Anna, or at least figure out who this woman in the rain really was. Elm Street was quiet when he arrived, the air thick with the scent of wet asphalt and fallen leaves. He scanned the corner where he'd fixed her car 2 days ago, half expecting it to be empty again. But there she was, Anna, leaning against a lamppost with that same battered cart beside her. She looked different in the daylight, less like a shadow, more like a person. Her scarf was gone, revealing a tangle of dark hair streaked with grey, and her coat hung loose on a frame that seemed too thin. But those amber eyes caught him the moment he stepped closer, sharp and searching, like she'd been waiting. "Hey," Ethan said, his voice rougher than he meant it to be. He shifted the notebook in his hands, suddenly unsure. I found something of yours." Anna's gaze flicked to the notebook, and for a split second, something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe, or fear. She straightened, brushing. A strand of hair behind her ear. "Thought I'd lost that," she said, her tone casual, but her eyes guarded. "Guess I owe you twice now." Ethan managed a small smile. "Fixing a wheel's no big deal. But this—" He held up the notebook, his thumb brushing the worn leather. "This is something else. Where'd you get it?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she tilted her head toward the diner across the street, its neon sign buzzing faintly. "Buy you a coffee, least I can do." He hesitated. He had work in an hour, and the babysitter would only cover till 6. But those recipes, her handwriting, they'd haunted him for 2 nights straight. He nodded, following her as she pushed the cart to a spot by the diner's entrance, locking it with a practiced twist of wire. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and frying bacon, a comforting hum beneath the clatter of plates. They slid into a booth by the window, and Anna ordered 2 coffees, black, like she already knew how he took it. "So," Ethan started, setting the notebook between them like evidence. "Anna Grayson. That's you, right?" She nodded, sipping. Her coffee, her fingers curling around the mug for warmth. "Last I checked." He leaned forward, voice low. "Then you're the Anna I knew. From back home. The fire, the kitchen, all of it. Those recipes, they're ours." Her eyes met his, steady and unreadable. "You've got a good memory, Ethan Harper." The sound of his name in her voice hit him like a punch, a soft one, but deep. He sat back, exhaling. "So it is you." "God, Anna, what happened? One day you were there, the next you were gone, and now—" He gestured vaguely at her coat, the cart outside. "This?" Anna traced the rim of her mug, her expression distant. "Life happened. Lost my folks, lost everything. Took a while to find my feet again." She paused, then added, "What about you? Last I saw you were going to be the next big chef. What's with the mop?" Ethan flinched, the question cutting closer than he liked. "Dreams don't pay the rent," he said, forcing a shrug. "Lost my wife 4 years back. Car accident. Got 2 kids to raise, Lily and Max. They're my world now. Cooking's just something I do for them." Her face softened, a crack in the wall she'd built. "I'm sorry, Ethan, that's rough." "Yeah, well, you play the hand you're dealt." He tapped the notebook. "But this, I don't get it. Why do you have it? And why are you out there living like that?" Anna didn't flinch, but her fingers tightened around the mug. "It's a long story. Let's just say I'm where I need to be." She leaned back, studying him. "You still cook, though, I can tell. That's not gone." He thought of Lily's spaghetti, Max begging for extra time on his chicken. "A little. Nothing like we dreamed." "Then let's fix that," she said suddenly, her voice firm. "Cook for me. 1 meal like old times. Bring the kids if you want. I'd like to meet them." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "What, now?" "Not now. Tomorrow night. Your place. I'll bring the coffee." She smiled then. A real one, small but warm, and it lit something in him he hadn't felt in years. "Why?" he asked, searching her face. "After all this time, why this?" Anna's smile faded, but her eyes held his. "Because some things are worth remembering, Ethan, and some people are worth finding again." He didn't know what to say. The diner buzzed around them, waitresses calling orders, a jukebox humming in the corner. But all he heard was her voice, steady and sure, like it used to be. He thought of the kids, of the empty evenings, of the dreams he'd buried. Maybe this was crazy, inviting a woman he barely knew anymore into his home. But she wasn't a stranger. Not really. She was Anna, the girl who'd once made him believe he could be more. "Okay," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tomorrow night." She nodded, then slid out of the booth, leaving a crumpled 5 on the table. "See you then," she said, and with that she was gone, the bell above the door jingling as she stepped back into the grey. Ethan sat there, coffee cooling in his hands, the notebook still open between them. He didn't have answers. Not about her life, not about the cart, not about why she'd kept those recipes all these years. But he had a promise, a meal to cook, and a flicker of something stirring inside him. Not hope, not yet, just the shadow of it, soft and tentative, like a memory coming back to life. Ethan Harper spent Wednesday morning in a haze, the kind of restless energy that made his hands itch for something to do. Anna's voice echoed in his head. "Cook for me. One meal, like old times." And it stirred a part of him he'd locked away since Sarah's death. The apartment smelled faintly of bleach from his half-hearted cleaning spree, but by noon he was at the corner market, a crumpled grocery list in hand. Chicken thighs, fresh rosemary, a knob of butter, simple stuff, nothing fancy, but enough to recreate the dish they'd dreamed up as kids. Chicken roasted with herbs, the kind that filled a room with warmth. Lily and Max had caught his mood, buzzing around the kitchen when they got home from school. "Who's coming, Daddy?" Lily asked, perched on a stool with her math homework abandoned. Her brown eyes, so like Sarah's, sparkled with curiosity. "A friend," Ethan said, chopping garlic with a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. "Someone I knew a long time ago." "Is she nice?" Max piped up, licking a spoon Ethan had used to test the sauce. "Does she like chicken?" Ethan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Yeah, she's nice. And she better like chicken. 'Cause that's what's for dinner." By 6, the apartment was as ready as it'd ever be. Table set with mismatched plates, a single candle flickering in the center because Lily insisted it'd look fancy. Ethan caught his reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, faded flannel shirt, stubble he hadn't bothered to shave, lines around his eyes that told the story of too many late nights. He wasn't the boy Anna remembered, but then again, she wasn't that girl either. Maybe that was okay. The knock came at 6:15, soft but firm. Ethan opened the door, and there she was, Anna Grayson, standing in the hallway with a thermos of coffee in one hand and a paper bag in the other. She'd traded her tattered coat for a worn sweater, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. Those amber eyes met his, and for a moment he was 14 again, standing in his grandma's kitchen with her laughter ringing in his ears. "Hey," she said, stepping inside. "Smells like heaven in here." Ethan grinned, a little sheepish. "Hope it tastes half as good. Come on in." Lily and Max materialized like moths to a flame, staring up at Anna with unguarded curiosity. "You're the cart lady?" Max blurted, and Ethan winced. Anna laughed, a real laugh, low and warm. "That's me, and you must be Max. I hear you're a chicken expert." Max beamed, puffing out his chest. "I helped with the sauce. And I'm Lily," his sister cut in, offering a hand like she'd seen in some old movie. "I set the table." Anna shook her hand solemnly. "Well done, Lily. You've got a knack for this." She handed Ethan the bag, a loaf of crusty bread, still warm. "Thought it'd go with dinner." They settled around the table, the kids chattering as Ethan served the chicken, golden and fragrant, with mashed potatoes he'd whipped up on a whim. Anna took a bite, closing her eyes for a second, and when she opened them, they were bright, with something he couldn't quite name. "This," she said, pointing her fork at the plate, "this is it, just like we imagined." Ethan's chest warmed, a flicker of pride he hadn't felt in too long. "Yeah? Not too shabby for a janitor, huh?" "Not shabby at all," she said, her smile soft. "You've still got it, Ethan." Dinner unfolded like a memory made new. Lily, telling a story about her science project, Max spilling potatoes on his shirt, Anna jumping in with tales of their childhood. "Your dad once tried to make soup with Kool-Aid," she said, grinning as the kids dissolved into giggles. "Thought it'd be revolutionary." "It was an experiment," Ethan protested, laughing despite himself. "You dared me!" The room filled with noise and light, a kind Ethan hadn't realized he'd missed. For an hour, the weight of bills and broken dreams lifted, replaced by the clink of forks and the kids' laughter. Anna fit like she'd always been there, her presence steady and quiet, a balm to the edges of his frayed life. After dessert, store-bought cookies Max insisted on sharing, Lily and Max retreated to their room, leaving Ethan and Anna with the coffee she'd brought. It was strong, bitter, the way he liked it. They sat on the couch, the notebook between them like an old friend. "Thanks for this," Anna said, cradling her mug. "Feels like a piece of home." "Any time," Ethan replied, then hesitated. "Anna, I've got to ask. Why'd you keep the notebook, all those years?" She looked down, her fingers tracing the mug's handle. "After the fire, I didn't have much left. That notebook, it was you, me, the good stuff. Kept me going when things got dark." Her voice dipped, heavy with something unspoken. "I'm still finding my way back, Ethan." He wanted to press her, about the cart, the streets, the life. She'd hinted at, but wouldn't explain. But then Max poked his head out, yawning, and Lily called for a bedtime story, and the moment slipped away. Anna stood, gathering her things. "Tomorrow night was worth it," she said at the door, her eyes locking with his. "You're a good man, Ethan Harper. Always were." He watched her go, the thermos still warm in his hand, her words settling deep. But as he turned back inside, something caught his eye, a glint of silver on the couch where she'd sat. He picked it up. A bracelet, delicate and expensive-looking, engraved with tiny initials he couldn't quite read. It didn't fit the Anna he'd seen, the cart lady, the coffee bringer. His gut twisted. Who was she, really? Ethan tucked the bracelet into his pocket, the question burning as he locked the door. Tomorrow, he'd clean floors again. But tonight, he'd tasted something else. Hope, fragile and fleeting, like the scent of rosemary lingering in the air. Ethan Harper woke Thursday morning with the bracelet in his hand, its silver links cool against his palm. He'd fallen asleep on the couch after tucking Lily and Max in, the weight of Anna's visit and that unexpected find, keeping him restless. The apartment was quiet now, save for the hum of the fridge and the faint drip of a faucet he'd never fixed. He turned the bracelet over, squinting at the tiny initials etched into the clasp. A.G. Anna Grayson. It had to be hers. But the craftsmanship, the subtle gleam, it wasn't something you'd pick up at a thrift store or find in a dumpster. It gnawed at him, a puzzle piece that didn't fit the woman he'd fed chicken to last night. He slipped it into his pocket as he got the kids ready for school, his mind half on their chatter and half on Anna. "Can she come again, Daddy?" Max asked, his mouth full of cereal. "She's funny." "Maybe," Ethan said, distracted, ruffling his son's hair. Lily watched him with those two keen eyes, but she didn't press. After dropping them off, he headed to work. The bracelet, a quiet weight against his thigh. He mopped the mall floors on autopilot, the squeak of his sneakers blending with the hum of early shoppers. But every so often he'd pause, fingers brushing the metal in his pocket, and wonder, "Who are you, Anna?" By lunch, curiosity won. He clocked out for his break, and walked 3 blocks to the public library, a squat brick building he hadn't visited since Lily's last book report. His old high school buddy Tom worked the reference desk, balding now, but still the same. Guy who'd once dared Ethan to eat a ghost pepper. Tom looked up from his computer, grinning. Well, damn, Ethan Harper in the flesh. What's up, man? Need a favor? Ethan said, sliding into a chair. Can you look someone up for me? Anna Grayson, grew up here, same as us. Tom raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. Let's see what we've got. His fingers flew over the keyboard, the screen casting a bluish glow on his face. A minute later, he whistled low. Holy hell, Ethan. You sure about this? Name, what'd you find? Ethan leaned in, heart thudding. Tom turned the screen. It was a news article dated 5 years back from the Chicago Tribune. Local philanthropist Anna Grayson founds Hope Network. Millions pledged to urban poor. Below it, a grainy photo of a woman in a tailored suit, smiling faintly. Anna, no question. Her amber eyes unmistakable even in black and white. The article went on. Heiress to a real estate fortune, orphaned young, turned her inheritance into a quiet empire of good deeds. But the kicker was the last line. Grayson is known for her reclusive nature, often living among the communities she serves. Ethan sat back, the air rushing out of him. A billionaire, he muttered. She's a damn billionaire. Tom smirked. Guess she's not just your old soup buddy anymore, huh? She never said, Ethan replied, half to himself. He thanked Tom, grabbed his stuff, and stepped into the crisp afternoon, head spinning. Anna Grayson, his Anna, wasn't just alive, she was rich beyond anything he'd imagined. So why the cart? Why the streets? The bracelet made sense now, but the rest didn't. He didn't see her until after work, when he swung by Elm Street on a hunch. She was there, sorting through her cart, a thermos of coffee steaming beside her. Ethan approached, the article's words looping in his mind. Hey, he said, voice tighter than he meant it to be. Anna looked up, smiling. Hey yourself, kids okay? Yeah, they're fine. He pulled the bracelet from his pocket, holding it out. This yours? Her smile faltered just for a second before she took it, slipping it into her sleeve. Thanks. Must have dropped. It, Anna, he said, stepping closer. I know who you are. Hope Network, the money, all of it. Why didn't you tell me? She froze, then sighed, setting the thermos down. Figured you'd find out eventually. You always were stubborn. Stubborn? He laughed, sharp and hollow. You're living like this. He gestured at the cart. And you've got millions? What the hell's going on? Anna met his gaze, unflinching. I don't live like this because I have to, Ethan. I do it because I need to. After the fire, I got the inheritance, more than I knew what to do with. Tried the big life, the suits, the parties, felt emptier than ever. So I started giving it away, living with the people I'm helping. Keeps me grounded. He stared at her, trying to reconcile the girl he'd known with this woman. Scarred, secretive, but still so damn sure. And the cart? A prop, mostly. Helps me blend in, but it's mine. Keeps me honest. Ethan shook his head, frustration bubbling up. You could have said something. Last night I cooked for you, Anna. Felt like old times, and you're sitting there with a secret like that? I didn't want you to see me as a checkbook, she said quietly. I wanted you to see me. The words hit him, softening. The edges of his anger. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Then she spoke again, her voice steady. I've got a proposition. There's an old kitchen near here, abandoned, falling apart. I bought it. Want to fix it up with me? Make it a place for people like us, people who need a meal, a chance. Ethan blinked, blindsided. What? Like a restaurant? A community spot. You cook, I fund it. Partners. His gut twisted. Pride flared. I don't need your charity. But then he saw her eyes, earnest and searching, and something shifted. I don't want to be saved, Anna, he said finally. I've got to stand on my own. She stepped closer, unflinching. I'm not saving you, Ethan. I'm asking you to save me. I can't do this alone. The air hung heavy between them, her words sinking in. He thought of Lily and Max, of the dreams he'd buried, of the warmth in his kitchen last night. Maybe this wasn't pity. Maybe it was a lifeline for both of them. I'll think about it, he said at last, voice rough. That's all I've got right now. Anna nodded, a flicker of relief in her eyes. That's enough. He walked away, the bracelets. Weight gone, but a new one settling in its place. She wasn't just Anna anymore, not the girl, not the cart lady. She was something bigger, and somehow still the same. And now, he had a choice to make. Ethan Harper didn't give Anna an answer that night. Her words, "I'm not saving you, I'm asking you to save me," hung in the air like smoke, curling around his thoughts as he walked home through the Chicago dusk. The streetlights buzzed, faintly, casting long shadows that stretched across the cracked pavement, and his boots scuffed against the ground with a rhythm he couldn't shake. He'd told her he'd think about it, but thinking was all he'd done since. About her, the kitchen she'd proposed, the life he'd let slip through his fingers. By the time he reached his apartment, the kids were asleep, and the silence pressed against him like a weight he couldn't lift. Friday passed in a blur of work and routine, mopping floors, picking up Lily and Max, reheating leftovers. But Anna's offer simmered beneath it all. He saw her in the margins of his day, the way she'd looked at him, steady and sure, asking not for pity, but for partnership. It wasn't charity, he realized, not really. It was something else, a chance, maybe, to reclaim a piece of himself. He'd buried with Sarah's memory and the dreams of a younger man. By Saturday morning, he'd made up his mind. He called Mrs. Carter to watch the kids, then headed to Elm Street. Anna was there, sorting through her cart with that quiet focus he was starting to recognize. She looked up as he approached, her amber eyes catching the weak sunlight. "Okay," Ethan said, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "I'm in, but it's my rules, no handouts. I pull my weight." Anna's lips curved, a slow, relieved smile. Wouldn't have it any other way. They started that afternoon. The kitchen she'd bought was a relic, a squat brick building. 2 blocks over, its windows boarded up and its roof sagging like an old man's shoulders. Inside, dust coated everything. Cracked counters, a rusted stove, a sink that coughed when Ethan turned the tap. It smelled of mildew and neglect, but beneath it he caught a whiff of possibility, of grease and garlic, of meals yet to be made. Anna rolled up her sleeves and they got to work. She hauled debris while he pried loose boards from the windows, letting light spill in for the first time in years. They didn't talk much at first, just moved in a quiet rhythm, the clatter of wood and the scrape of metal filling the space. But as the day wore on, the silence softened and stories slipped out, small ones at first, like pebbles dropped into a still pond. "Remember that time we tried to fry donuts?" Anna said, wiping sweat from her brow as she wrestled with a broken chair. "You set the pan on fire and your grandma chased us out with a broom." Ethan chuckled, hammering a nail into a shelf. "Yeah, she was mad as hell. Said we'd burn the house down before we cooked anything worth eating." "We almost did," Anna shot back, grinning. "But those donuts, charred or not, they were ours." He nodded, the memory warming him. "Ours," he echoed, and for a moment the years between them shrank to nothing. By evening the place looked less like a ruin and more like a promise. They sat on the floor, backs against the counter, sharing a thermos of Anna's coffee. The air smelled of sawdust and hope, and Ethan felt a flicker of something he hadn't in ages. Pride, maybe, or purpose. "This could work," he said, staring at the bare bones of the kitchen. "Really work." "It will," Anna replied, her voice firm. "With you here, it will." He glanced at her, caught off guard by the certainty in her tone. She looked back, her eyes steady, and the space between them felt charged, alive with something he couldn't name. "Why me, Anna?" he asked, quieter now. "You could hire anyone. Chefs with fancy degrees, people who know what they're doing. Why me?" She set the thermos down, her fingers brushing his for a fleeting second. "Because you're not just anyone, Ethan. You're the one who made me believe in something back then, before everything went to hell. I need that again. I need you." The words hit him hard, stirring a heat he hadn't felt since Sarah, since Anna herself, if he was honest. He remembered her at 15, scribbling recipes while he spun wild ideas, her laughter lighting up his world. He'd loved her then, in that clumsy teenage way, but he'd never said it. Too scared, too young. And now, here she was, asking him to step into a dream they'd built together decades ago. "I loved you, you know," Anna said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Back then. Never told you, thought it'd ruin us. Guess I was wrong." Ethan's breath caught, his heart thudding against his ribs. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the girl she'd been, the woman she'd become, the scars and strength woven together. "We were kids," he said, his voice rough, "but yeah, I felt it too. Just didn't know what to do with it." She smiled, small and bittersweet, and leaned closer. Their hands brushed again, deliberate this time, and before he could think, he closed the gap, wrapping her in a hug that felt like coming home. She melted into it, her breath warm against his shoulder, and for a minute the world was just them. Two people who'd lost too much, holding on to what they'd found. They pulled apart, but the air stayed warm. "Let's finish this," Ethan said, nodding at the kitchen. "Together." "Together," Anna echoed, and they got back to work. Later, as dusk settled, they stood outside, painting her old cart a bright blue to hang as a sign. Their hands moved in sync, brushes dipping into the can, and when their fingers tangled over a streak of paint, neither pulled away. Ethan looked at her, paint smudged on her cheek, and thought, "This is it. The fire's back." Ethan Harper stood in the doorway of the newly christened The Cart on its opening day, a Saturday in early November, the air crisp with the promise of winter. The old kitchen had been transformed, fresh paint on the walls, a gleaming stove. Hauled in by Anna's quiet connections, tables scavenged from thrift stores scrubbed clean. The blue-painted cart hung above the entrance, a beacon of their shared past and the hope they'd built together. Inside, the scent of simmering stew, beef with red wine, one of their old recipes, wafted through the room, mingling with the chatter of a small crowd already gathering. Anna moved beside him, her sweater sleeves rolled up, a clipboard in hand. "Ready?" she asked, her amber eyes catching his with a mix of nerves and excitement. Ethan adjusted the apron tied around his waist, his hands steady despite the knot in his stomach. "As I'll ever be," he said, managing a grin. "Let's feed some." Folks, the doors opened at noon and people trickled in, worn-out faces from the neighborhood, some with kids in tow, others alone, their eyes wary but curious. The cart wasn't just a restaurant, it was a lifeline. Free meals for those who couldn't pay, $1 or $2 for those who could. Ethan worked the stove, ladling stew into bowls, while Anna greeted everyone, her voice warm and sure, putting them at ease. Lily and Max darted around, carrying bread baskets and beaming at the compliments on their dad's cooking. By 2 o'clock, the place was humming. An old man with a grizzled beard told Ethan the stew reminded him of his mother's, and a young mom with a toddler thanked Anna with tears in her eyes. Ethan felt it then, a swell of pride, not just for the food, but for what they'd made here. He glanced at Anna, laughing with a group of regulars, and thought, this is what we dreamed of. The kids were a hit too. Lily, with her quiet confidence, refilled water glasses like a pro, while Max charmed a table of grey-haired women with his gap-toothed grin. "You've got good ones," Anna said later, sidling up to Ethan as he stirred a fresh pot. "They're like you, heart in the right place." "They've got their mom in them too," he replied, his voice softening. "Sarah'd be proud." Anna squeezed his arm, a silent understanding passing between them. They'd both lost too much to take this lightly. Every smile, every full belly was a victory, but victory didn't come without shadows. Late that afternoon, as the crowd thinned, a man in a cheap suit slipped in, scribbling notes on a pad. Ethan caught him snapping a photo of Anna handing out bread, his gut tightening. "Press," Anna muttered when she saw him, her jaw set. "Ignore it." The next morning, it hit. The Chicago Sun-Times ran a piece. "Billionaire philanthropist plays poor at new soup kitchen." The article twisted everything, Anna's cart, her life on the streets, into a stunt, a rich woman's game. Ethan read it over coffee, his hands clenching the paper so hard it tore. Lily peeked over his shoulder, frowning. "Is that Anna? Why are they mean?" "They don't get it," Ethan said, forcing calm. "They don't know her like we do." By noon, word had spread. A small crowd gathered outside the cart, some curious, some angry, shouting questions as Anna arrived. "You slumming it with us, lady?" a man yelled, his voice rough. "What's the angle?" Ethan stepped out, apron still on, fury simmering. He'd seen Anna pour herself into this place, her money, sure, but her heart too. "Back off," he said, loud enough to cut through the noise. "You don't know what you're talking about." The man sneered. "Oh yeah? What's she to you, huh? Her pet project?" "She's my partner," Ethan snapped, stepping closer. "This isn't a game. She's here because she cares, more than any of you armchair critics. You want proof? Come inside, eat, see for yourselves." The crowd quieted, uncertain. Anna touched his arm, her voice low. "Ethan, you don't have to—" "Yeah, I do," he cut in, turning to her. "You've been carrying this alone too long. Let me take some of it." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. Then she stepped forward, facing the crowd. "I'm Anna Grayson," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Yeah, I've got money. Lost my family to get it, and it nearly broke me. This place, this isn't about fame. It's about feeding people who need it. If you don't believe me, walk away. But if you're hungry, come in. Doors open." Silence, stretched, taut and heavy. Then a woman near the back, thin, with a faded coat, pushed through, her voice small but firm. "I don't care who you are. That stew yesterday, it's the best I've had in months. I'm staying." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and slowly they dispersed, some grumbling, others filing inside. Ethan watched Anna exhale, her shoulders slumping with relief. "Nice speech," he said, nudging her. "You're tougher than you look." "Had a good backup," she replied, a faint smile breaking through. "Thanks, Ethan." They went back to work, the day salvaged by bowls of stew and quiet gratitude. Later, as the sun dipped low, Ethan found Anna at the counter, staring at the blue cart overhead. "You okay?" he asked, leaning beside her. "Yeah," she said, her voice soft. "Just didn't expect it to mean this much. Not to them, not to me." He followed her gaze, the cart's paint catching the last light. "It's not just food, Anna. It's us. Where we started, where we're going. They feel that." She turned to him, eyes bright. "You're right. And I'm glad it's with you." Ethan's chest warmed, a steady glow he hadn't felt in years. He'd stood up for her today, not out of duty, but because she mattered. Because this mattered. The fire they'd rekindled wasn't just in the kitchen, it was in them, burning brighter with every bowl they served. Ethan Harper woke to the howl of wind, rattling the apartment windows. A late November storm rolling in with a fury that shook the city. It was a Tuesday, 2 weeks since the cart had opened its doors, and the place had already become a heartbeat in the neighborhood, a steady pulse of warmth and full bellies. He'd grown used to the rhythm, mornings at the mall mopping floors, afternoons at the community kitchen with Anna, nights with Lily and Max laughing over leftovers. But as he peered out at the churning grey sky, unease settled in his gut. Storms. Like this didn't just bring rain, they broke things. By noon, the news confirmed it. A nor'easter, rare for Chicago, barreling down with 50-mile-an-hour gusts and a deluge that promised flooding. Ethan called Anna from the mall break room, his voice tight over the crackling line. "You at the cart?" "Yeah," she said, the clatter of pots in the background. "Prepping extra soup. Folks'll need it today. You coming?" "After my shift. Stay safe, okay?" "You too," she replied, and he could hear the smile in her voice, a small anchor in the chaos. He finished work early, the mall shutting down as the storm worsened, and picked up the kids from school, their faces flushed with excitement at the wild weather. "Can we help at the cart?" Lily asked, tugging his sleeve. "Please, Daddy." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Stick close. It's going to be a mess out there." They arrived just as the sky split open, rain hammering, the roof like a drum roll. Inside, the cart was a hive. Anna and a handful of regulars dishing out soup, blankets piled in a corner for anyone needing shelter. The blue cart sign swayed outside, creaking ominously. Ethan jumped in, stirring a pot of broth while Lily and Max handed out bread, their small hands steady despite the chaos. But the storm didn't relent. Around 4, a crash echoed from the back, a window shattering under a fallen branch, water pouring in. Ethan grabbed a tarp, Anna at his side, and they wrestled it over the gap, the wind whipping their clothes. "This place is tougher than it looks," Anna shouted over the roar, her braid plastered to her cheek. "Barely," Ethan yelled back, but he grinned, adrenaline surging. They held it together, barely, until the worst passed, leaving a soggy mess and a roof leaking in 3 spots. By evening, the crowd had thinned, the rain reduced to a steady patter. Ethan surveyed the damage: soaked floors, a cracked counter, half the soup stock lost to the flood. Anna sank onto a bench, exhaustion etching lines around her eyes. "We'll fix it," she said, more to herself than him. "We've got to. A will," Ethan replied, sitting beside her. "But damn, that was close." She nodded, then leaned against him, just enough for him to feel her warmth through their damp clothes. The kids were in the corner, wrapped in blankets, giggling over a game of cards, with an old man named Joe. Ethan watched them, a lump rising in his throat. This wasn't just a kitchen anymore. It was a home, fragile but real. Cleanup stretched into the night. Ethan swept water out the door, while Anna patched leaks with duct tape, their movements synced like a quiet dance. The storm had stripped away pretense, leaving them raw and unguarded. As they hauled a broken table to the curb, Ethan spotted something in the debris, a small, warped frame half buried under splintered wood. He pulled it free, brushing off the grime, and froze. It was a photo, faded but intact. Him and Anna at 14, grinning in his grandma's kitchen, a pot of something unrecognizable between them. The glass was cracked, but their faces shone. Through, young, fearless, dreaming. He hadn't known it still existed, hadn't thought about it in decades. "Anna," he called, voice rough. She turned, and when she saw it, her breath hitched. "Where'd you—" She started, then stopped, taking it from him with trembling hands. "God, look at us." "Yeah," Ethan said, stepping closer. "That's us." She traced the frame, her eyes glistening. "I thought I'd lost everything back then. But this survived." He saw it then. The weight she carried, the years of holding herself together with nothing but grit and that damn cart. "You didn't lose me," he said softly. "Not then, not now." Anna looked up, tears spilling over, and for the first time since he'd found her again, she let them fall. "I've been running so long, Ethan, trying to fix things, to make up for what I couldn't save. I didn't think I'd get this back." He pulled her into his arms, the photo pressed between them, and held her as the rain tapped a steady rhythm outside. She clung to him, her sobs quiet but deep, and he felt his own eyes burn. They'd both lost too much. Parents, Sarah, the kids they'd been. But here, in this battered kitchen, they'd found something worth keeping. "I've got you," he whispered, his voice steady. "We've got this." She nodded against his chest, then pulled back, wiping her face with a shaky laugh. "Guess we're a mess, huh?" "The best kind," he said, smiling through the ache. They stood there, the photo in her hands, and Ethan knew it wasn't over. The storm had taken its toll, but it had given them this too. He grabbed her hand, tugging her outside where the rain had slowed to a drizzle. The air was cold, sharp, but alive. "Come on," he said, and before she could protest, he kissed her, soft at first, then deeper, tasting salt and coffee and years of waiting. She kissed him back, fierce and sure, the storm's last echoes fading around them. When they broke apart, breathless, the blue cart stood behind them, paint chipped but standing tall. "Our shelter," Anna murmured, resting, her forehead against his. "Always," Ethan replied, and in that moment he believed it. Ethan Harper stood at the stove of the cart a year later, stirring a pot of apple cider as December snow dusted the windowsills outside. The kitchen hummed with life, tables packed with familiar faces, the air rich with the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon. It was Christmas Eve, nearly 13 months since he'd fixed Anna's cart in the rain, and the little community spot had grown into something bigger than either of them had dared dream. The blue cart still hung above the door, its paint chipped, but proud, a quiet testament to where they'd started. Anna moved through the room, her laughter mingling with the chatter as she handed out mugs of cider to a group of kids huddled by the heater. She'd traded her old sweater for a red scarf today, her hair loose and streaked with more grey than before, but her amber eyes shone brighter than ever. Ethan caught her glance across the crowd, and she winked, a small, private thing that warmed him more than the stove ever could. The storm last November had been a turning point. They'd rebuilt the cart stronger, new windows, a patched roof, a second stove funded by Anna's quiet donations. But it wasn't just the building that had changed. Ethan had quit the mall job 6 months back, trading his mop for a chef's knife full-time. Anna's Hope Network had taken notice, and now there were 3 more carts across the Midwest, each one a beacon for the hungry and the hurting. But this one, the original, was theirs, his and Anna's, a legacy carved from grit and grace. Tonight was special, though. Ethan had proposed to Anna 3 weeks ago under the snow-dusted cart sign, her yes a whisper against his lips. As Lily and Max cheered from the sidelines, they'd kept it quiet, planning a simple wedding here, where it all began. The kids had insisted on helping, Lily with flowers, Max with rings, and the regulars had pitched in too, turning the night into a celebration of more than just the holiday. As dusk fell, Ethan stepped away from the stove, wiping his hands on his apron. Anna met him by the counter, her fingers brushing his. "Ready?" she asked, her voice soft but sure. "Ready," he said, squeezing her hand. He nodded to Lily, who dimmed the lights, and the room hushed, all eyes turning their way. Ethan cleared, his throat, his heart thudding but steady. "Folks," he started, his voice carrying over the crackle of the fireplace, "you know Anna and me, we're not big on speeches, but tonight's different. This place, it's not just about food, it's about you, all of you, and what we've built together. And, well," he glanced at Anna, grinning, "we figured it's the perfect spot to make it official." A murmur rippled through the crowd, then a cheer as Lily stepped forward, a basket of wildflowers in her arms, scattering petals with a grin. Max followed, holding up a velvet box with 2 simple gold bands, his chest puffed out like a tiny soldier. Old Joe, the regular who'd become their unofficial officiant, shuffled up, a Bible tucked under his arm and a twinkle in his eye. The ceremony was short, nothing fancy, just vows spoken over the hum of the heater, promises of love and partnership, sealed with laughter and a few tears. "I, Ethan, take you, Anna," he said, slipping the ring onto her finger, "to cook with, to fight for, to build something real with, always." Her hands trembled as she echoed him, her "I do" soft. but fierce, and when they kissed, the room erupted, whistles, claps, Max yelling, "Gross!" until Lily shushed him. After the meal began, turkey and stuffing, cider and pie, shared on mismatched plates as music played from a battered radio. Ethan and Anna sat at the center table, hands entwined, watching the life they'd made unfold. "We did it," Anna murmured, resting her head on his shoulder. "From that damn cart to this." "Yeah," Ethan said, his voice thick, "and it's just the start." Later, as the night wound down, Ethan stepped outside to clear a table, the snow falling soft and silent. Anna joined him, the blue cart glowing under a string of lights they'd hung for the occasion. She'd painted words on it months back. "From the broken, we build a world." And they stood out now, bold against the night. "Happy?" he asked, pulling her close. "More than I thought I could be," she said, her breath a warm cloud between them. "You?" "Same," he replied, kissing her forehead. "This, us, them, it's enough." They turned back inside, but not before Ethan caught a glimpse of a note slipped under a plate on the doorstep. He unfolded it, Anna peering over his shoulder. In shaky handwriting it read, "Thank you for the meal and a reason to keep going. No name, just gratitude, raw and real." Anna's eyes glistened, and Ethan tucked the note into his pocket, a quiet treasure. "That's why we do it," he said, voice low. "For them, for us too," she added, and he nodded, knowing she was right. The night ended with Lily and Max curled up by the fire, the crowd thinning as snow blanketed the streets. Ethan locked the door, Anna at his side, and they stood in the glow of their little world, plates stacked, laughter lingering, the cart watching over it all. It wasn't perfect, wasn't grand, but it was theirs, a legacy of love and kindness built from the ashes of what they'd lost. As they walked home hand in hand, Ethan felt it, a peace he hadn't known he could find. The cart had carried them here, through rain and ruin, to a place where broken things became whole. And in the stillness, with Anna's warmth beside him and the kids' voices echoing in his heart, he knew. This was the dream, the one worth waking up for. And there you have it, the end of the cart that carried us. I'd love to hear from you now. Where are you joining us from today? Are you cozied up in a snowy Chicago suburb like Ethan and Anna, or maybe somewhere warmer, sipping coffee by the coast? Drop a comment below and let me know. It's always a treat to see where these stories reach. If this journey of love, kindness, and second chances touched you, why not subscribe? It's a simple way to stay